Good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our presentation, webinar, workshop, teach-in about returning Camden to local control. We're talking about Camden Traditional Public Schools, and we'll talk about that soon. This is our second webinar, checking in with you all. I hope that you had a chance to join our Facebook page and see our live recording of our week one. So we're going to be doing 4 weeks of this webinar, kind of teach and kind of connecting folks to what is really going on for Camden Traditional Public Schools. I'm Rhonda Dickerson. I'm the Executive Director of Camden Parent and Student Union. I'm also a parent in Camden Traditional Public Schools and also a grandparent. And I'm excited to be here to facilitate this webinar kind of workshop teach and we're calling it because it's not an open conversation. It's a needed conversation about what's going on with Camden Traditional Public Schools, or we may call them TPSs or Camden TPSs. If you hear that term, that's what that means, Camden Traditional Public Schools. So before we get started, just want to let everyone know if you're tuning in on Facebook Live, if you're tuning in on watching it over, some time, you can always go back and revisit some of the conversation that we're having. We won't hold these webinars long. Some will be a little lengthier. We'll try to cut them up and repost them so you can get the information, but it's a good listen to and a good look. We love a little slide deck and give our community information. And again, we start off with our disclaimer. So before I start off with that, I want you all to know really, really quick that this webinar is every Wednesday. It airs at 7 p.m. or we go live at 7 p.m. rather, and you'll get a chance to hear detail about how do we make our way back to returning Camden TPS's traditional public schools back to local control. And we'll talk about what that is in this workshop. We'll recap a little bit and then go back into the next level of getting everybody to understand it. So all we ask from Camden Parent and Student Union is that you share it, and fact check what you want to fact check the things that go along with that. However, we have been on this platform teaching our community about how important it is for us to be able to have information regarding how do we return Camden to local control. It really makes no, from what we're noticing, it makes no sense that we have been under control for over almost 13 years from the state of New Jersey. So we'll talk about that in a second. So again, welcome. Glad you're all here. Let's dive into it. So the first thing that we want to touch on is our disclaimer. As you see it up on the screen, it's important that everyone understands that we are speaking about this disclaimer based on we know that the materials that we're providing is for education and information purpose only. It's not about getting into any other details regarding people's professions and any things that we may be trying to say to attack anyone. We have made very reasonable efforts to do a lot of work to make sure that this information we're giving is understandable, is attainable, and we want folks to understand that this is what we are looking at as the experts on the ground from attending these meetings, from doing our own research, from working with researchers, professional researchers, and so on and so forth. So we're asking everyone as you were reading this, and before Meta or Facebook or whatever social media wants to shut it down, we're letting folks know that this is coming from an informational purpose only. It does not belong to us. It's information that we have researched and studied and also been in attendance at certain meetings to get this information out to people. So that's that. Done. Disclaimers done. All right. So let's talk about returning Camden to local control. What does that look like? Now, I know that a lot of folks are looking at this and saying, okay, so, what is the purpose of this? The purpose of us coming together is to start to have a deeper conversation, a long overdue conversation about what local control really means. We always talk about what we posted on our social media. If you're not following us on Instagram and also on Facebook, we've been posting these different graphics to let folks know what it looks like. So this is what local control means to a community. Number one, parents vote. Parents directly vote for who manages and runs Camden schools. This is what we talked about for our first week of the webinar. So important that you either revisit that. We'll talk more in detail about that as we go along. We want to recap, make sure everyone understands what local control means. It also means community decides. Local communities decide which schools remain open and active. And you know that is a problem in Camden, New Jersey. For too long, people are closing our schools with no type of parental engagement, no type of parental vote, nothing from the students, just closing schools based on what they see from the top down. Public budget debates. We are not talking about the budget openly. The budget is given to us from the state down to the state appointed superintendent and then said openly in a public meeting, but there's no communication about what the budget is actually going to. Our tax dollars are going to whatever that they deem important. When I say they, the state and the district, but we don't get any conversation around that. And then funds spent on students. Educational funding directly benefits students rather than being redirected. We would like to see our tax dollars be spent on our students. Period. Full stop. And accountable leadership. School leaders answer directly to local families, not state officials. That's been a big problem in Camden, New Jersey for many, many years. So we would like to see that as we're talking about what local control means. So if anybody that's looking at this and has a spirit or an energy of you would like to learn more about it, we will be holding at the end of the month of August that we're in-person meetings to talk about how do we start building our own Camden public community transitional team to pull us back into state control. It's going to be work, y'all, but we can do it. All right, so let's give a quick recap on this. Last Wednesday, we talked about this. We had 26 traditional public schools in 2013. And in 2026, we only have 15 left right now. I can't go by what's rumored, what's going on. We can't go by that. Based on our research, this is what we have left. So if your children, if you have a child, grandchild, um, cousin, nephew, niece, anyone who attends these schools, these are all considered the Camden traditional public schools. These are original schools, our day one schools. These are legacy schools that's been in the city of Camden for many, many years. I'm talking about hundreds of years down to 50 years they've been here in Camden, or maybe down to 30 or 20, but they've been here longer than some of the other schools. And these are our neighborhood schools. These are the schools that we should be looking for. These are the schools when you go into another community, like a Cherry Hill, like a Collinswood, like any other affluent community, you will see their traditional public schools, Cherry Hill East, Cherry Hill West, all those kind of schools, Audubon High School, that's their traditional public schools. So if these are the schools that are the school that we have in Camden that are left for our children to have as traditional public schools. Now, I want to make this quick note. When a child attends a different school district in Camden, remember we talked about there's three school districts, Renaissance schools, charter schools, and traditional public schools. When our children go to attend one of the other school districts like Renaissance schools or charter schools, when they kick them out or they say they cannot accept them, they will return them back to their neighborhood schools. And these are those neighborhood schools in front of you. Okay, let's keep it going. So if your child attends one of these schools, then these are considered Renaissance schools. These schools have only been in Camden or in existence in Camden for about 13 years. They came under the auspices of the Urban Hope Act. And we're going to talk about that in depth today for this quick webinar that we're on, a brief webinar. But letting you know that these are the schools that were introduced by the state, by elected officials, by county officials, by legislators. These are the schools that were introduced to Camden in 2013. And we'll talk about why. If you watch the last webinar, you'll get more detail. But today I'm going to give you that information as well. So these schools are those schools. So that's the Renaissance schools consist of Mastery, KIPP, and Uncommon. If your children attend Enville schools, they are not in a Camden traditional public schools. They're in a different school district and they're considered Renaissance schools. They're called public charter schools. All right. And if your child attends any of these schools, and we included the Renaissance schools in this too, because they are charter schools, these are the charter schools. Some of them have been here for at least 20 years, maybe about 20, 25, maybe 30, maybe 25 years. And fact check us on that. But these are those schools also, and these are the charter schools that have to go through the state to do an application in order to get them to be able to be approved to be a charter school in Camden, New Jersey. Now, I want to make the statement very clear. All the schools that I've named outside of the traditional public schools, all of them take enrollment from the Camden traditional public schools. The charter schools take enrollment from Camden traditional public schools, and also the Renaissance schools takes enrollment from the Camden traditional public schools. They do not have new students just coming in. Those students are already more than likely enrolled into Camden, and then they come and they go to these different schools. All right, everyone clear on that. So this is something you should look into. This is just so you know. When your student is released from one of these schools, they're going to be returned back to their traditional public school. All right. So who is responsible? We asked this question last time that we were here on the last webinar. We talked about who is responsible for Camden being under state control. We see TPS, traditional public schools. If you look at the list is very, very clear. We made it very clear this is who the people are that are responsible, and including us. And our past and present New Jersey governors, you see it, Department of Education, past and everyone's past and present. So we all have responsibility, and the reason why we're under state control right now. And here, we're not pointing fingers, we're saying we're all collectively responsible for us being in a situation that we're in right now. So please, if you want to talk about this more in detail, we will be coming together at the end of the month of August. We can have an open discussion about how do we, as the community that we are, the parents that we are, the strong generation of students that we're raising, how do we protect them from having a better school year and a better educational experience versus going through this tug and pull of state control and different school districts. Again, here is just a overview of what happened from 2007 to 2012, how we got to state control, and also how we got to being under with the Urban Hope Act. This is just the Urban Hope Act really had nothing to do with this, but it's just for you to know for your information. This is an older assessment that led to the state takeover, and any area under 50% allows the state to intervene. Each area needs to have a 80% or higher to get out of state control. So here's the synopsis. We're talking about the Urban Hope Act today. In the next couple of minutes, it's going to be talking about Urban Hope Act. So the New Jersey Urban Hope Act, what they call UHA, in 2012, the Urban Hope Act passed during lame duck session. That's when most of our elected officials may not be in office, but you do still have a representative body or a voting body mass. You may have a critical mass, but it's not everyone. So everyone's voice is not included in this process. And you can go deeper on what lame duck is. It's a very politically weird, kind of unfair, unjust process. So this legislation right here was sponsored by, he was then at the time, Senator Donald Norcross. Now, I want to make a note here. Senator Donald Norcross didn't go to any of our Camden schools. It also was written by Philip Norcross, that's his brother. Okay, these folks were the ones who introduced the Urban Hope Act. It was signed into law by Governor Christie, and the key supporters of this Urban Hope Act was at the time Mayor Dana Regg, of course, the political power boss George Norcross, because his brothers are already on it. The state commissioner at the time, Christopher Surf of the Department of Education, Senator President at that time, Sweeney, and he was from Gloucester, New Jersey. William Spearman was a part of signing this too, and we should have a deeper conversation with Mr. Spearman about this. And then at the time, who was also the Assemblyman Gilbert Wilson, who's no longer in Assembly or Sheriff of Camden or Camden County anymore. So these were all at the time in 2012 the people who were supporters and signers of the Urban Hope Act coming in. If you don't know the Urban Hope Act, the purpose of it was for them to create a Renaissance Schools project. It was designed to be for any school districts in the state of New Jersey that were considered as a failing school district. They identified three of them. Three school districts that were failing school districts would receive this idea of a Renaissance School project to help the schools not it was a way to avoid state intervention. So the Urban Hope Act was supposed to be supportive to lifting up traditional public schools, giving traditional public schools a chance to thrive and to rebuild themselves, to find where there are crater holes at and little nuances that are not working well, to change the way that we are educating our students. That was the idea of a Renaissance School project that was supposed to be delivered under this Urban Hope Act, where all these people signed on. And it was supposed to be in three school districts, and it only ended up landing in one, and that's Camden City. Okay, so just want to make sure you all understood that's where we are. So these are the what we call the CMOs, charter management organizations. CMOs are chartered management organizations that all now exist under the Urban Hope Act. So these people put in bids to be able to get their CMO into Camden and be able to now reap the benefits under the state legislature to be able to build their schools in Camden, New Jersey. There were, as we said before, back in our recaps, if you follow our page, there were other bidders that did not get that put their applications in but did not get approved. And we'll name again Universal Schools over in Philadelphia, Brother Kenny Gamble. Y'all all know the famous Brother Kenny Gamble, who has his Universal Schools. He was offering cultural congruency, cultural competency, and more of a understanding of how to build the schools in those neighborhoods. All right. So here's the part that we want to talk about today. We're still talking about the Urban Hope Act. Remember, the Urban Hope Act, if you're looking at the screen, was introduced in the Senate on December 15th, 2011. Its primary sponsors are on the screen. You can see that, right? The bill passed again in the legislator and the legislator during, sorry, the bill passed the legislature during the lame duck session on January 9th, 2012, with a Senate vote of 35 to 3 and with an Assembly vote of 56 to 17. So all these folks were saying yes to this Urban Hope Act that was supposed to be in three failing identified school districts. Governor Christie again signed the legislation on January 12th, as soon as he was sworn back into office, at Land Square and Camden schools. So as you can see, this was the process. We're being very transparent in our research about the process of how the Urban Hope Act got here. The key factors of this is that it was supposed to be an opportunity to rebuild traditional schools in three identified failing school districts. Now let's keep going. Here's another thing. It was amended. This is the part that we don't talk about a lot in legislation. I know everyone doesn't understand how to read legislation. I'm still learning myself too. Can the Parent and Student Union have made it our business to be better at learning more about legislation and policy, right? So the Urban Hope Act was first amended in 2013. The key, this is a different bill number and a different Senate number. You'll see it on her SAA number, 1R, and the session was 2012-2013. Key amendments. It replaced the requirements that a school be in a common campus setting with a broader urban campus area, defined as areas within a 2-mile radius of the initial school site. So what happened was a lot of these applicants, the charter management organization said they will build their own schools and build a common campus setting with a broader urban campus within a broader urban campus area. What they're doing is amending it and saying it has to be within a 2-mile radius of the initial school site they originally had slotted. So watch how this is working. It allowed Renaissance School projects to provide pre-kindergarten programs. Originally, it also was only supposed to be from K to 12. So now, over time, these Renaissance schools were starting to now take away our early childhood enrollment. And then it also removed the requirement to meet facility efficiency standards. Now, over in the Camden traditional public schools, there are facility efficiency standards that we cannot get around. But for the Urban Hope Act, for the Charters Management Organization, it removed that requirement, developed by the Commissioner of Education, and also designated Renaissance schools as local education agencies for federal entitlement and discretionary funds. Keep up with me, y'all. This is what was amended in 2012 and 2013. It gave pretty much a pass to Renaissance schools to be able to have legislative support, land. They can grab the land, they can take our early childhood enrollment, and they also had access to any discretionary money or any federal money, government agency money that was coming in. They can apply for it as well. And then it also, all in this one amendment, removed the requirement for Renaissance school applicants to provide proof of existing funds to construct the school. It replaced it with providing a funding plan. So now, as these CMOs are building these charter management organizations, KIP, Mastering Uncommon, they can now say, oh, by the way, we don't have the money right now, but what we can do is show you that we have a funding plan that we're going to get the money. And the amendment allowed them to go ahead and didn't require them. What it basically did was the amendment did not require that finances be fully secured at the time of application. Only a plan at any term of existence. Finances that will also be the idea of there could be potentially existing finances coming down. And I'm not done. I know that one blew my mind. And then it also removed the requirements for applicants to provide detailed descriptions of land to be acquired. So it means that with any land that Renaissance schools were trying to acquire, they did not have to give any type of information on that, and financing plans for land acquisitions. So this is a scheme. This is a sham. Renaissance schools were giving the green carpet, not even a red carpet. They were giving a green light, thumbs up, go for it. And people signed off on this. People who are not from our city, people who do not do not have children enrolled in these schools. They actually thought they were helping Camden, which I don't believe, but I'm gonna say it, by way of giving access to these Renaissance schools to have anything they wanted. They gave them carte blanche to our city. Finances, early childhood development, or enrollment. They gave them access to funding, no discretion, no discretion. They gave them access to name what areas and what land they were going to steal or grab. They also removed any hurdles in their way. They could and they didn't have to have any type of like a plan. They had no, I'm sorry, no finances. They had to have a plan. I wish that I could go and say, hey, PSENG, here's my plan to pay you all back. I don't have the money right now, but here's a plan. Oh, hey, mortgage company, here's my plan to pay you back. I ain't got the money yet. Oh, here, hey, car note. Y'all got to get what I'm saying. It's real. So, with all that being said, we have an opportunity to build a better understanding of how we can get through Renaissance schools and what the Urban Hope Act is. So, with all that being said, this was one of the amendments that happened in 2013, 2012, and 2013. We'll keep it moving. Okay, so here is another amendment that happened for the Urban Hope Act Bill 2, S2264. Remember, we're giving you the truth and the details of what actually happened. So, this was sponsored by Assemblyman Troy Singleton and James Beach, Burlington County, and Camden. Key amendments to this side. So I know the first side blew your mind, but watch this one. What it did was it gave extension to the deadline for Renaissance School applicants in Camden from January 2015 to January 2016. So that extended the application so that they can further pretty much like put their feet on Camden soil. It changed original requirement for all Renaissance schools to be newly constructed to include existing facilities that have undergone substantial reconstruction. With this amendment, only the first facility of a Renaissance school project must be newly constructed and house a minimum of 20% of the student population. Okay, let's work with that. So if everyone remembers, when Renaissance schools first started going underway, the first school they conquered and put their flag in was Pine Point. They took over Pine Point, then they went over to Bonsall. They started putting their flags everywhere. I'm talking about Mastery, Uncommon, and KIPP. The only school at the time that was constructed on Broadway was the KIPP school. So that's the one that fits the criteria of original requirement for all Renaissance schools to be newly constructed to include existing facilities that have undergone substantial reconstruction. Remember, when they let the students come back to school at Pine Point, we use Pine Point for example, Pine Point students came back, one side was newly or substantially reconstructed, one side was completely blue, mastery signs everywhere, air conditioner, new paint, new equipment inside the room. On the other side, as it was a co-locator on a other side where Pine Point, our traditional public school, there was no updates done to that side of the school. Y'all got to remember, going back to 2012, 2013, this is all happening. And then the part that says, uh, with the amendment that only the first facility of a Renaissance schools project be newly constructed and house a minimum of 20% of the student population. This is when KIPP erupted. The new KIPP, right across from the old Broadway school, was put up, and that was the newly constructed housing for the Renaissance School project. Y'all got to keep up with this. Additional facilities do not have to be newly constructed. So that means that every other facility under Renaissance schools could be able to do a co-location with a traditional public school and then work with the or speak to the superintendents of that school or the state and say, this school is doing poor. The body of the school is not good. The building is bad. It's failing. It's this and that. Give all these reasons why. And then they would merge. They would start taking over grade by grade. So they would come in, would say third grade or second grade, or start at maybe first grade, and then start every year or every year bringing one or two more grades, and then pretty much take over the school. Remember what happened in Bonsall School? Bonsall School was no air conditioner on one floor. Kids were hot on another floor, and they started coming in and phasing out every school that Bonsall had and made it now become a master or uncommon prep school. They co-located in many schools, and then to a point, they just took over schools. So they closed down Whittier, and Whittier became what school now? I'm testing y'all knowledge. Whittier became a uncommon prep. They took over Hatch. It became an uncommon school. They took over Sumner. It became an uncommon school. When I'm talking about them, I'm talking about this whole idea of the Urban Hope Act and Renaissance School projects. All right. And then it also allowed Renaissance schools to operate in temporary facilities for up to 3 years before their permanent facilities are completed. Remember, when Renaissance schools was co-locating at certain facilities, and go over there to Parkside where they have the new high school over there and the new Uncommon Prep. These schools were over at Sumner and over at Whittier and at these different schools and at Hatch, and now they have their new facilities, right? And while in temporary facilities, they receive charter school rate funding to operate lower than the full Renaissance school rate. So they get charter school funding to operate, and this amendment retroactively authorized Kid Cooper Norcross Academy opening in that fall of 2014 using temporary facilities. The bill controversy to the situation is mind-blowing. Is the proposed amendment included a controversial early retirement incentive package for Camden City School District employees. So they already knew that they were getting ready to come out here and pretty much bully the Camden City School District so we would not have enough students and also fire all of our teachers. This was seen as a way to soften the blow of Superintendent Rohanifer's plan to lay off 241 of its employees, teacher staff included, for the 2014 and 2015 school year, and made room for Renaissance school hiring. So let them go over at traditional public schools, and we can hire them over at Renaissance schools and give this so-called incentive packages. And then critics saw this as a straining that an already underfunded pension system to facilitate Renaissance schools transition. Governor Christie and Chris Surf issued a conditional veto that approved this bill, excluding the early retirement provisions. So they didn't include that in this amendment, but it was a lot of people that were for it. And a final amendment bill passed Senate and Assembly and did not have any early retirement provisions in it. So even still, teachers and educators were being fired over in Camden, but if they came over to Renaissance schools, they had no incentive packages because that got let go. So the state was still like, we're not helping. We're not helping with this. Whatever y'all doing, make it happen. If y'all want to retire, get up out of here. It's the fact that they are plotting on people's livelihoods, and it's still happening to date today. We have lost so many great teachers who've been fired and let go because of budget issues or so-called poor performance. I'm gonna keep it moving. So here is the post that we made. The state doesn't live here, we do. Full stop. The state doesn't live here. We Camden families do every single day. The state does not walk past closed buildings that look like funerals, or do they sit in underfunded classrooms? They don't. And shout out to the teachers who really care and put their heart into Camden every day, not as a social project, but really doing it. And I don't mean to dig, but I'm being honest, who come here every day and put it on for these students. This is what we're talking about. You all deserve to see what it feels like to have funding for the things that you need, basic things like pencils and pens and extra supplies and things of that nature, and field trips and educational opportunities and unrestricted curriculum things that give you a chance to really see your student grow and not look at your student as a student ID number, but really as an individual that you have helped to get there. All right, let's keep it moving. So again, rationale. This is Governor Christie's rationale. The Urban Hope Act was being introduced to be able to so-called support Renaissance school projects in 3 failing school districts. Camden was considered a failing school district. Governor Christie said he waited 3 years to see if our traditional public schools would improve before taking over, and the Camden's deep-rooted problem would not be solved without state intervention. So Governor Christie didn't care about the Urban Hope Act. He was for it. He didn't care. He said, I don't care if it works or it doesn't work. In my words, I'm going to take over the school district anyway. The state is taking over. That was the rationale. And then during those 3 years of waiting for improvement, the governor never made any effort, we said this in the last webinar, to actually give Camden traditional public schools the resources and support it needed to improve. So we didn't have anybody in our favor. We had a governor that was against us. We had administration or what we call elected officials and legislators that were not thinking of the bigger picture and overall view. We had political party bosses involved in this process. We had a family that was scheming behind our backs and right in our face in plain sight really dealing with the issue of they were just going to pretty much bully us and take over Camden traditional public schools. So again, 2013, here are the people who let Camden traditional public schools go. The state took over. So let's keep it moving. So this is just, I'm gonna go through this fast. Here we are. The numbers are staggering since Renaissance schools, since the Urban Hope Act was implemented. 2013, we had 11,660 students. Since by 2024, just a couple school years ago, and we're really coming out of 24 school year, we were down to 5,764 students. Make clear these numbers are real. This is research that we've done, and it sits on the Kansas City School District webpage. Just as a reminder, in 2023 and 24, we were compliant in four out of five areas, right? 4 out of 5 areas we were compliant for New Jersey QSAC. Remember, we said earlier, you got to be at 80% or higher, 80% or higher for the state not to intervene. So the state has been intervening for all these years, but why is it that in 23, 24, the state didn't start to move Camden out of state control? This is what we're talking about. This is the part that we're talking about of how do we, the community, look at these numbers and not look at the state with a side eye saying it's some funny business going on. So what justice looks like in Camden. Very important to be very, very clear on this. We talked about this in our last webinar. We'll keep repeating these things because repetition is the key. Repetition is the key. So what it looks like is if we were to be able to have justice in Camden, we would have to have an elected school board that is not still running on the same ticket as the mayor. It is not connected to any political parties at all. It's supposed to be a nonpartisan election anyway. And in Camden, when people run for elected school board, that the people, the community voted to get back into Camden, all of the people who have been on the school board outside of maybe one or two, potentially maybe one, has been running under the Camden County Democratic Committee or Camden City Democratic Committee. Do the research. All under the mayor's picks or who they all got slid in by way of running on a ticket of someone that was running for office already. So that's not nonpartisan. Total financial accountability. We need to know where every dollar is going and it's accounted for, public transparency, and immediately protecting our neighborhood schools. Do not close another school in Camden, particularly our traditional public schools. That's always being closed. You never hear about poor performance in these other schools because they're getting everything they need. They don't know what it means to struggle. Renaissance schools and charter schools may not really know the full feeling of how it feels to struggle. I know charter schools might be like, oh no, Russia, you wrong. We suffer over here, but not like we do. Not like we do over here. And not to compare, because comparison could be the thief of joy. I'm just saying that we all struggle, but Camden traditional public schools have struggled the most. Restore student support. We have lost again all of our counselors, our mentors, our support staff. Restore that. We need that back in our schools and community-led policy. We need wisdom that can help us to rebuild Camden traditional public schools, and that will give us justice. And not people who are playing politics, not people who people are saying like, oh no, they're well respected. Some people have been here with degrees. Some people have been here for years, have given advice to the state and to the city on what we should do, and they do not live in the city. They may have longevity in being in our schools, but they don't live here. They don't really have the pulse of the community anymore. We need something different, and that's what we're fighting for, and we're taking action for right now. All right. So this is stopping the bleeding. This is what we proposed to the state already. The state has this. They know about this. We talk about stopping the bleeding. 13 years under state control. We have suffered financial mismanagement. In the school year 24-25, we're still in a $91 million deficit. We've suffered student neglect with firing essential Kansas City School District support staff with no plans on rehiring them, and stripped our students of their resources and that were guaranteed by our tax dollars, and racial discrimination. Since 2011, the state-led initiatives like the New Jersey Urban Hope Act and One Camden Enrollment have sabotaged traditional public school enrollment and facilitated the seizure of local land and assessments. And you can see by those amendments we talked about earlier that this is where we are. Let's push it through. So this is the current superintendent. No, Dr. Davida Cole-Brockton is not the superintendent anymore. She is no longer the principal at Creative Arts High School. She now is considered an administrator in the Camden City School District. They have taken the doc from her principal position to being an administrator in Camden City Public Schools, and she fought to get back to be principal of Creative Arts. So parents, if you didn't know that, you need to know what's going on at that school site. But this is the superintendent. who is the current superintendent of Camden Traditional Public Schools, Alfonso Llano, and he has full state power to move, hire, fire, to do whatever he needs to do for Camden Traditional Public Schools. This is the proposed budget for the 2026 incoming school year, 26-27 school year. Enrollment is looked to decline even more. As you can see, it's down to 5,515 students. Soon, Camden is not going to have any students because we keep allowing our students to be pulled out. And the question I beg of you to ask is why? What's going on that we do not have access to give our students the opportunity to fight for flourishing traditional public schools versus just saying, oh, I'm sick of them schools over there. I'm going to send my child to a Renaissance schools, and then not be honest about how Renaissance schools are treating our children, not be honest on how these charter schools are treating our children, the unsafe things that are going on over there, the sexual assault and harassment things that are happening over there, not digging, just saying, why is it that we're not banding together to at least lift up the goodness that's happening in Renaissance schools in Camden, New Jersey? And here's the person, this is the current appointed commissioner of education. She serves at the pleasure of the current governor, Governor Sherrill. She is the person who has the full power with the stroke of a book with the New Jersey Board of Education, State Board of Education, to return Camden to local control. Yes, we've reached out to her. Yes, we've been to her building. No, we have not met with her. Yes, she's come down to Camden a few times and have not met with the community. Yes, we've asked both of them, Mr. Yano and also the commissioner, for a community-led town hall. Yes, we've asked them to deal with the community and answer the questions that we have, because the onus shouldn't be on Camden Parent Student Union or any other advocacy or activists in Camden. It shouldn't be on an organization like ours. It should be more so on the state to answer the questions. We've made it very clear our demands to give full restoration, not a little bit, not pieces, transition us back to full restoration of Camden's traditional public schools, because state intervention has not worked. We've gotten 20 times worse. We've lost students, we've lost more teachers, and we also have seen finances go out the door under state control for 13 years. Our call to action for everybody. We want to give the power back to the people directly. Power back to the people. We like to see our schools, everyone in the school district or in the community, help us spread the word to the NJDOE, the commissioner, and return Camden to local control. Call and email her office or their office, spread the word, share the timeline of sabotage. We're going to share that. Again, if people want that timeline, if you need that to kind of like give you some information and some fuel to your information with the details and data, we can email back to you just when you're watching this. Just put it in the voice message or direct message us on our website, CamdenPSU.com. Invite traditional parents to our next webinar at the end of the month. And do not use Camden enrollment. Don't use it. It is not mandatory to enroll your students by way of Camden enrollment. You can go directly to the school and register your student. It's August. I know folks are looking for schools or thinking about this or made a move or just coming to Camden. If you know a new family here that's looking to enroll their student into one of our Camden traditional public schools, tell them to go to the school they like to enroll their students in, particularly if it's a Camden traditional public schools. Even go over to the Renaissance schools. See what's going on over there. Go into a charter school and see what's going on there. Do not use when you know how you're looking for food, when it's quick bird walk. You know how when you're in a new city or new town, you're looking for food, and you're trying to see what's the best location to go to. We generally either look at the pictures to see how it looks, if we're trying to figure out what it is, or we will go through the reviews of how people review how that restaurant is. And then when we go there, we also say, the smell might be off, the energy might be off, the neighborhood might be off, we might not want to eat there. So that's important. Do your research online, but go there too, so you can be able to see what else is going on inside the school you're about to put your baby in for the next almost 8 to 10 years of their life. They're going to be inside these schools. And you're just going to say, oh, online, okay, it's like Amazon. You can't return stuff back. You can't return stuff back. This is not Amazon. Your child's education is not an Amazon order. You can't say, oh, yeah, it didn't fit. I'm going to return it and get my money back. That's not, we're not even doing that much with the anger of, this didn't work for me. I'm going to sue y'all, or I'm going to take this issue up to the state. I'm going to, speak to everyone about how wrong this is. We don't even do that. We just say, I'm going to transfer you to a different school. I'm going to transfer you to a different campus. Maybe I like it over there. Maybe I like it over there. No, ring the bell, sound the alarm. Your children are not Amazon orders. You can't just say, I'm just going to return and keep it moving and get my money back. They deserve to see you fighting so they can learn how to fight and defend themselves. Last thing that we were going to talk about here is here's the timeline of continued sabotage. If you need this timeline to understand what's been going on, we will send this to you directly. We're going to make it downloadable on our website as well. I'll make sure I tell our beautiful team of amazing brains to put that on our website. You can download it. So this is what we've been talking about for the past full year, almost 2 years now. However, we're going to get this, you can download it, but if you need it right now, you can email it or just screenshot it. It's yours. And then what's next? Bring someone to the next webinar. Again, we're on every evening and Wednesday up for the next 3 weeks. So join us. We'll talk and we'll break down more and more about what it looks like to return to local control for our Camden TPSs or Camden Traditional Public Schools. We're going to do a community listening session, and things we want you to walk away with now is, again, ask these questions. What does back to school look like to you, right? What are you looking for when you talk about back to school? We're looking for more free book bags. We're looking for some real social services that our students need, some real support, some real, let's say, resources that should be inside the school that our students need every day since we don't have any support staff. And then we want to come and talk to parents, students, and teachers about the upcoming school year. Like, what would you like to see in the upcoming school year? This is not about an attack on anyone. It's about really saying, as a parent, this is what I need for my students to be successful in the school year. We track them, parents. We track them. When they go to pre-K, we crying. When they go to kindergarten, we crying. When they start first and second grade, we crying like, oh, my baby's getting older. Third, fourth, fifth grade, we still on. We get your little graduation. Going into junior high school, we start getting a little bit like they getting on my nerves. They smelling themselves. They acting up because we got to stay on and get to high school. If you don't set a good a good tone for your students in the early grades, high school, they're going to cut up anyway. As it said, teachers say parents send their students to school thinking they're one way, but we see who they really are. We see who they really are. So let us put good stuff. Community, I'm charging people that are in political offices. I'm charging the state, charging everybody, not just but Camden Parent and Student Union. We can do better. We are demanding excellence. And that's what this webinar is about. So thank y'all for being a part of this. This is what we're talking about what local control means. It actually means parent vote for who runs the schools. Communities decide which schools stay open. Budgets are debated in public. Money is spent on students, not redirected. Leaders answer to families and not the state. This is what we're on right now. So walk with us as we really walk through returning to local control. We're going to get there. It's going to be work. But please don't act like there's no one out here. There's no people. No one's on it. We are on it. We're not the only ones. But let's band together because we can get our schools from under the state's thumb and really get back to what we need without political garbage, political trash can mess, forgive my term, political pollution, plantation politics. We can do it. Let's start seeing people for who they are for real, and not that I went to school with them or this or that. Listen, I get it. I got people who I'm like, ooh. However, when it comes down to the facts and to the data, we play no games about our children. Our children deserve better. And with that being said, we want everybody to join us next week for our next upcoming webinar, workshop, training, so you can have more detail. Watch it now. Watch it later, save it. If you have questions, remember our disclaimer in the beginning. We are not here to attack or act like this is the only thing that we know, but this is our research. This is us attending meetings. This is us being involved in it for the past decades. 2 decades we've been a part of this process. 2 decades or more. And now we're on the second half of fighting for and protecting our traditional public schools in Camden, New Jersey. I look forward to seeing you all again on next Wednesday. We'll talk more in detail. We'll also be talking about some special guests coming on to talk about their process of returning local control. So we thank y'all for being a part of today's training and webinar. And please, 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 please have someone join us at the next webinar training so they can get more detail, but review the first 2 weeks so you can know what's going on. Y'all be well, y'all be safe, y'all be strong. Peace, stay hydrated, stay leading with love, and thank you for tuning in tonight. Again, I'm Rancha Dickerson here to share some insight with you about how do we return our traditional public schools back to local control. And I want to shout out the Camden Parent and Student Union and all of our advocates and agitators and fighters that are out there. Thank you for all that you do. Peace, y'all.